Hey guys, and welcome to another video about God is a Victory, NIKKE. If you have been watching my videos for a while now, you might have seen my pre-release analysis on upcoming characters as well as my post-release guides. At the end of those videos, I will either recommend the character or not, depending on how I feel about them. So today, we will be going over the things that I consider when it comes to determining if a character is good or not. Before we continue, I just want to say that everyone's perception of what a good character is will be different. This is just to give you an idea on how I analyze the characters, and hopefully you can use some of these to evaluate specific characters to see if they are a good fit for your account. I will also introduce a new recommendation rating system that I will use in my future character videos. As always, if you find this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and let's jump right in. First of all, whenever I evaluate a character, I always approach it from a free-to-play or low-spender perspective because I think that the majority of the players are in that category. My recommendations are highly influenced by the fact that the average player has limited resources to work with, and I also take into account the existing characters that each player might have available to see if the new character is better or is a good alternative. I also consider the character's pros and cons. A character can be really good at one thing, but it might not justify spending tens of thousands of gems or even 200 vouchers to get them. And on the other hand, a character might have a few weaknesses, but they can also perform really well when those weaknesses are covered by specific characters. We can take for example Anne Miracle Fairy. During my pre-release analysis, my expectations were not that high for this character. Her skill conditions are too specific, therefore limiting the value of what would have been good utility from her kit. She also has a 60-second cooldown on her burst, and she somewhat forces you to run another burst type 2 character if you want faster rotation. But regardless, people still say that she is good and she is very strong in PvP, which is true to some degree, but the question is less about how good is Anne Miracle Fairy in PvP, but more of is she worth getting just so I can perform better in PvP. Let's say she is rated as double S tier on PvP, but if she is not remotely as good when it comes to the other content, does that really justify the amount of resources that you will have to spend just to get the character? For this case, let's take a look at PvP. If you check the rewards, the additional arena vouchers you will get for placing higher is very minimal. And if you have been playing for a while now, you will most likely be in the top 50 or higher in your server, which is already a good spot to be in. So if you ask me, that's not a very compelling reason to pull for Miracle Fairy just to get a few more arena vouchers per day and per season. Another important factor you have to consider is versatility. You would want a character that you will be able to use in pretty much any situation without any problems if possible. This very much applies for any role, but especially for supports. One of the reasons why Winter Rupee is placed lower on the tier lists is because of the fact that she limits how you build your team, to the point where you essentially have to build around her just to be able to work around her downsides, which is the complete opposite of what the other supports usually are. Characters like N102 and Litter can literally fit any team you have. Winter Rupee in most cases is just very annoying to use in comparison. Which brings us to the next factor, simplicity. We all know how the saying goes. There is beauty in simplicity, and this applies to the characters in NIKKE. What do I mean by simple? Simple in the sense that their kit is straightforward, not having complicated skill conditions, which will inevitably hurt their versatility. We can go back to Anne Miracle Fairy. Her skills are good, but having skill conditions such as her heals only affecting the supports, and her burst only reviving attackers. This makes her kit a lot less versatile compared to the other supports whose buffs will affect anyone and even everyone in your team. With that said, some skills are still good even with conditions attached because it makes sense in their context. One example is Rapunzel's skill 1, a healing effect that only affects 3 of your allies with the lowest HP. This still makes sense because you would want to heal the characters with the lowest HP anyways. Skill conditions that limit the number of characters affected by the skills are more often than not better than conditions that only let you target a specific type of character. The things that we've talked about are applicable for any character but mainly for the supports and defenders. Now when it comes to attackers or your main DPS, there's quite a few things to keep in mind. Before you decide to put for a DPS character, you should first take a look at the characters you currently have. More often than not, you will only be using a handful of characters from your roster because it's the best way to spend your upgrade materials. You would optimally focus your skill and burst manuals on just a few characters because that will give you the most combat power. I would recommend 2 or 3 DPS characters that will cover mid to long range, 1 or 2 characters that will cover close range stages, and maybe 1 or 2 rocket launcher DPS since there will be stages where AoE damage will be extremely useful. Personally, I have 16 DPS characters, but I only use 6 of them for the most part. I might use the ones like Isabel for stages that requires me to, but it doesn't happen too often. This is all important to know because whenever I recommend a DPS unit, I always say that it all depends on the characters you have now. At the end of the day, The main thing that defines if a DPS character is good is the skill values in multipliers. But the second thing that determines their power level are their skill effects. The skill effects have a big impact on how good a character is, because not all skill effects are made equal. Some skills are applied on a single target, some are applied for all targets, and some skill effects are more favorable than others. So this can be a good basis on how good a character will be. I can make a separate video talking about how good each buff and debuffs are, so I will just make a separate video discussing that. But overall, the key things that influence a character's power level or how well they are designed are as follows: versatility, simplicity, amount of improvement relative to the resources spent, and what their skills bring to the table. Recommendations for limited characters are not that black and white, so I came up with sort of a rating system on how much I recommend each character. We have red, which means I don't recommend a character. It can be because they are not good at all, or if you already have the characters similar to them, you won't see much of a difference. Next, we have yellow. Yellow means that the character is okay, but they are not a must-have. You can maybe try to get them with your gems, but it's not worth using all 200 vouchers to get the character. And lastly, we have green. The character probably checks all the boxes in my criteria of what makes a good character. And this can also mean that the character is a must-have for any account. You can imagine if a character as good as Scarlet was released, they would easily have a green label. Do let me know what you think of this rating. I will make adjustments if I need to, but I will definitely be using this in my future pre-release analysis and guide videos. So yeah, hopefully this gave you some insight on how I evaluate characters. If you found this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.